yeah, now I look back and it was such a beautiful, weird, bizarre, time, and I guess I've distanced myself so much from the painful parts of my
Mm-hmm.
childhood that I feel good writing about these songs. They don't feel sad to me, or they actually feel really they make me feel empowered and even better, and there's even very, very subtle shades of humor in there
Definitely.
that I you know you have to look for, but
No, I think when I reviewed your CD, I said that there was definitely a tone of hope
yeah,
in the song. So it wasn't like it was sad or desperation, but there's isolation with hope
yeah.
in them. So yeah, I really like that about what you do. So then, what brought you to Dallas?
Well, my brother and I, actually, our very first band was with Bob Schneider.
No kidding.
Yeah, Bob Schneider was living in El Paso. His family, um, I think he'd spent a lot of time in Germany.
Yeah.
And my brother and Bob were dating sisters, the Clapp sisters.
I bet there's some good stories
Yeah,
there with the
and
Clapp sisters.
they were dating the Clapp sisters. And so Gretchen, my brother's girlfriend, mentioned to her sister, who I believe was her name was Heidi, that Ferris was, Bob. They knew Bob was great and talented. He was a keyboard player at the time. That was his main instrument. And I was writing songs. I was a very earnest young man with my Rickenbacker guitar, and so somehow we got together and we started playing, and we called ourselves the Crying Dimes with a Y in Dimes, and
This is a part of Bob Schneider's history that I am not aware
yeah,
of. This is good stuff.
well, and we so. But there was one problem. We didn't have a bass player. Bob was on keys. My brother was playing drums. I was guitar and singing badly, and so we set out to look for a bass player. And Bob drew up this great wanted ad. It was actually of an outlaw with a big mustache and a sombrero.
He's a good artist.
And yeah, he had it even back then. And but all we ever got, I remember distinctly, we had a couple mariachi guys call us, and a few heavy metalers. So we knew, well, there's no way we're ever gonna get anybody in this city. And then even if we had a bass player, where are we gonna play? There's nowhere to play. Um, so we decided one summer, I think it was like the summer of '86 or something. Bob was going to go back to Germany to visit, and then when he came back, we were all going to go to Austin. And while Bob was gone, I got the great idea that I would rather go to Denton instead of Austin. And I mean, great, terrible idea.
Great
Terrible.
as in bad.
Terrible. Yeah, like you have no idea how many years I kicked myself for that one.
There's a little
and
scene in Denton.
my brother probably kicked me a bit too.
Because you dragged him
Yeah.
along.
Well, Bob came back from Germany and said, "Okay, we're going to Austin, right?" And we said, "Well, you're going. We're going to go to Denton." And so we went to Denton. And at the time, my brother and I were really getting into, like, it was the '80s, and the '80s for people who like guitars was a really nasty time, because it was all about synthesizers and drum machines and that kind of thing. And so we were clinging on to a few sort of '80s guitar bands, like the Church from Australia, and there's a band from England called the Chameleons, and stuff like that. And so we went to Denton, which was sort of the funk capital of the world. If you didn't have a pair of bongos, you were ostracized or stoned on the street or whatever.
And the funky stuff would have worked
Yeah.
for Bob.
Yeah.
Because with the scabs.
Yeah, Bob would have done great in Denton. But he ended up doing great in Austin.
He ended up doing great in Austin, yeah.
So that became my sort of, that's when my anti-love affair with Denton began, and the beginning of many frustrating years trying to play kind of music that we liked in Denton, and then later on coming to Dallas and floating around the suburbs, because we weren't from here, and it's a massive city. We didn't know where to go or where to be, and it wasn't until I ended up in this neighborhood in the old part of town that really my happy life began, because I finally felt like I was somewhere where I didn't feel like a stranger in a strange land, like El Paso and Denton and Plano and Arlington and all these horrible places that, well, to me, horrible, that I'd lived.
That's how I feel
So,
about living in Austin.
yeah.
Definitely, it's the first place that I felt like I belonged. It was like, meant to be.
It's so important, isn't it?
It's so important.
You can't be happy.
It makes all the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you have to find that place where you feel like you can be productive and supported.
Yeah,
I think.
absolutely.
So this area is called Lower Greenville.
Yeah, this is the Lower Greenville area.
Very cool area.
Yeah.
I was noticing the neighborhoods are adorable, and you've got a lot of little shops and
Yeah,
restaurants
beautiful
and things.
vintage shops.
Yeah,
And
it's a lot like Hyde Park. Have you been to
Yeah.
Hyde Park in Austin?
Yeah,
That's right.
I love that area.
Yeah.
And we don't venture out much. I mean, we stay
how I
in
am.
sort of a 10-minute radius,
Yeah.
and I do admittedly live in a bubble here. Like, I love this part of town. I despise other parts of town. When a lot of times when I meet people that talk about Dallas and they go, I mean, what the is about is they don't. It's not this. This is Dallas to me, the old Dallas
Right.
and downtown and Lower Greenville and Lakewood it's a small community actually. It feels, even though we're in a city of however many million, like this part of Dallas is its own community and a little city within a much bigger thing.
Right, right. It looks really neat. So what's the music scene like in Dallas? Because I know there's been some problems with Deep Ellum over the years. I used to come to Deep Ellum all the time, and it's been probably a decade since I've been to a show up here.
Well, the thing is, being here now and not being from here, it's strange. I've become so patriotic about Dallas, because the Dallas music scene, because I've been here since the late '80s and started playing professionally here in the early '90s. So a long time, and there has always been so much talent here over the years. So many amazing people that shoulda, coulda been famous. And
Austin is the same way.
But this is a sports and commerce town.
Yeah.
This town, although it has many wonderful people that support the arts, and there are pockets of great people like that, anybody who plays music in this town for more than 5 years, or makes it 5 years, almost deserves like a Medal of Honor, because it's really hard. The city is not supportive. Like, most of the powers that be would like it just to go away, it seems. And I think that's one of the things that happened to Deep Ellum. It felt like the city just wanted apartments there. They didn't want to deal with having to send police down there to mess with nightclubs and all the other things. And it's just such a different. I think we have as much talent as anywhere. But what we don't have, and what Austin has in spades, with people like you actually too, is this supportive, amazing support coming from the city that has created this environment where it's one of the most, it's one of the biggest music scenes in the world. We have talent here to do that, but I don't think it's ever going to happen because of the lack of support coming from the city and
the community.
people, the community.
Yeah.
People that really take hold of it. But we're still going to do our thing. Like last night at the Granada, hundreds of people there for the cystic fibrosis benefit. Rhett Miller has been a huge part of continuing to come back here.
Even though he doesn't live here anymore.
He does
still feel like he's a Texan and supports.
And he's got that same feeling I have now. Even though I wasn't raised here, this is my home now, and these are my friends, and I'd go to the mat for them. And Rhett, even Rhett, when he toured for his first album, The Instigator, the first thing he did is call his best friend Robert Jenkins and say, "I want to hire a Dallas band. Who do you think would be good?" And that's when my name came up. And so that was definitely the beginning of something that's just snowballed for me. And it came from Rhett coming back to Dallas, even though he could have gone anywhere. And then our friend Carter Albrecht, who's gone now, was another huge proponent of Dallas music and Dallas musicians. And he had opportunities to move to New York and LA, and he refused to do it because he was so dedicated to like playing music here and bringing Dallas music forward. And when we lost him, it was a huge blow on many levels.
Definitely.
But for me, just losing that person who was so strong and so dedicated to spreading the word about what we're doing here, it was just hard to recover. I mean, it's one reason I went and made my last album, Constellation. Not a big reason, but part of the picture of leaving, actually going to Austin, working with Billy, and feeling like, that was something